Hello, my name is Milan Sharma, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. And this is from December 19th, 8 o'clock, Breaking 911 website. And it says Russian ambassador shot dead in Turkey as Syria war roils region. So I'll just read parts of this article, and I'll put the link below. You can read it fully if you'd like. Russia's ambassador was shot dead in the Turkish capital on Monday in an assassination attempt, or an assassination. He was actually killed by it, apparently linked to Syria's civil war, heightening tensions over a conflict that's drawn in almost all the region's main powers. Andrei Karlov was shot in the back at an art exhibit in Ankara on Monday and died from his injuries, according to the Russian Foreign Ministry. Quote, "Don't forget Aleppo," the assailant shouted, according to the footage on Turkish television, in a reference to the Syrian city where mostly Islamist rebels have been defeated this month by Russian-backed government troops. Local media said the attacker was killed by security forces. Karlov's death comes days after one of Russia's biggest victories since it joined the Syrian war was last year in support of President Bashar Assad. Assad's army, with Russian air support, has retaken almost all of Aleppo, once Syria's largest city, and for years a rebel bastion. Turkey, which supported the insurgents there and elsewhere in Syria, so they're supporting the quote-unquote moderate rebels whom they won't deny their allegiance to Al Qaeda. They won't say they're against Al Qaeda. So that's a huge indicator of terrorism. So they support the insurgents there and elsewhere in Syria. Has played a key role along with Russia in negotiating the ongoing evacuation of opposition fighters and civilians. So the Syrian Free Army is actually supporting the civilians trying to evacuate, while the rebels, which the U.S. supports and Turkey supports, are actually bombing the bombing the buses for the evacuation, and they're actually attacking civilians that are trying to escape. So if these are moderate rebels, I don't think so. The attack on the Russian ambassador is the latest potential flashpoint between major powers that are engaged on opposite sides of the Syrian war. And again, according to a Canadian journalist who was actually there, she talked to the immigrants and said that they'd rather have Assad in power. I'm not saying Assad's good, but they said that they'd rather have Assad in power than the insurgent rebels, because the rebels, Assad's regime, is actually protecting the civilians more than the rebels are. Because look what happened in Libya. Yes, Gaddafi was a ruthless dictator, but then when they took him out, he was replaced by, it was created a vacuum for ISIS to take control, which obviously is a worse scenario, a worse situation. And Iraq, that's what happened in Iraq and Honduras, and it goes on and on. Turkey's ties with Russia came under heavy strain after Turkish military shot down a Russian plane last year. Though both governments have since made an effort to repair them. So what happened was the plane was actually a Russian plane was flying into a Turkey's no-fly zone in Syria for 17 seconds, and it was shot down. And I believe the pilot was dead, or he might have escaped. I'm not quite sure. The U.S., Iran, and Saudi Arabia are among the other countries that are either fighting in Syria themselves or providing money and weapons in groups that are. So the United States recently said that they would suspend or limit weapons sales to Saudi Arabia after the massive killings that Saudi Arabia has been involved in. And obviously, this should have been done a long time ago. Amnesty International and the UN have condemned the United States for continuing the support of Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabia regime, which has been providing support of not only ISIS, but fundamentalist Islam, which is basically a chaotic form of religion. It's basically fundamentalist, which is ridiculous. Turkey's lira slid. I'm not sure what that is. After the attack, losing 0.8% against the dollar at 9 p.m. So that's just local time. That's just a statistic. The fall of Aleppo marked a defeat for Turkey, which supported the Sunni Muslim groups fighting against Assad. So most of the Sunni Muslim groups are actually part of ISIS. So remember that. Russia says the Syrian rebels are overwhelmingly made up of Islamic extremists, which is true. And Turkey has argued that they're resisting a violent dictatorship, which is also true. So it's basically, what's the lesser evil here? And I believe that Assad is a lesser evil because, obviously, according to the journalist who is an independent journalist, she said that civilians prefer Assad over the rebels. While that's still the Turkish line, in practice, the country has switched its focus in Syria since the rapprochement between Erdogan and Russia's counterpart, Putin. Turkish troops have pushed deep into the neighboring country since August, but they're mostly targeting Kurdish groups and Islamic State fighters and steered clear from the Battle of Aleppo. Erdogan called Putin after Monday's assassination to share information, according to NTV television, which cited Turkish president's spokesman. Toursky paid an economic price last time in its relationship with Moscow hit the buffers, as Russia imposed sanctions that targeted the country's exports and tourism market. And that's referring to when Turkey shot down Russia's plane. That's what the sanctions are referring to. Not this recent one. We'll see what happens after this recent catastrophe. Still, the killings again raises security concerns for Russian tourists in Turkey. Pushkov, a member of the Defense and Security Committee of the Russian Parliament's upper house, said in televised comments, "Tourism is a key force of foreign currency and is already in decline after a series of attacks by Islamist and Kurdish groups." The State Department condemned the attack of the Russian envoy. The U.S., Turkey's NATO ally, shared its allegiance to rebel groups in Syria and has repeatedly denounced Russia for killing civilians during the campaign to recapture Aleppo. Again, the United States has killed dozens of innocent civilians in Syria that the UN that is a part of Syria has condemned and tried to tell the United States to stop because it's killed dozens of innocent women and children. The last one, I believe, was in the fall, killed around 76. It's really heartbreaking what's going on. And Russia's doing airstrikes as well. It's horrible because it's killing more people than hurting terrorists. In fact, Noam Chomsky called the United States drone system the biggest terrorism project in the world. And he's a professor. Just horrible. Very sad. And according to Huffington Post, in a study that was found that I read in the Huffington Post, the airstrikes miss 90% of the time. 90%. It misses its target. So, again, it's not working. We've been doing this war since 2001. We spent almost $5 trillion, and at 4.7 to be exact. The Taliban controls more land, he controls more territory than before the Iraq invasion. We still have 7,000 to 8,000 troops there. Excuse me. And again, in Libya, we're through the government there. ISIS controls that. So all of these events have repercussions. You cannot bomb terrorism out of existence. Obama is bombing 7 countries right now. 7. So more than Bush. And this is the guy that received the Nobel Peace Prize Award. So give me your thoughts below. You can, again, read this article in full description in the and full description in the description section below. Follow me on Twitter for any updates on what's going on. If you're interested in politics, public policy, etc., you can follow me on Twitter. The link is below. And thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening.